Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 508 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is consistency. Our quote of the day comes to us from Paul Merson. If you want to be successful, you need consistency. And if you don't have it, you've got no chance. In only 4 short days from now, on October 22nd, we are hosting our next live event, Finish Strong, at the Norwalk Inn in Norwalk, Connecticut, starting at 5 p.m. We still have some tickets left, but you need to go ahead and grab yours. You do not want to miss this event, especially if you want to finish off 2024 on fire and start 2025 with a strategic plan of attack. If you have any questions, you can reach me at chris@noquitliving.com. We hope to see you on the 22nd. I met our guest back early this year at one of our events. We got to talking between one of the breaks, and we hit it off. Denzel Robinson is an up-and-coming speaker and coach, and I'm grateful that he took the time to be with us. I know you will enjoy today's episode. Denzel, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you, my friend. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you jumping on. I know you have a bunch of different things going on, a lot of balls in the air. So first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
Absolutely.
First question we ask each guest is for their no quit story, a time where they could have given up or given in, could be personally or professionally. Would love for you to share one of your no quit stories with our audience.
Absolutely. So I was at a state tournament, and this was back in high school, actually. So I was running track and field at the time. And this is the farthest that we've ever gone in the tournament. I went to Staples High School in Westport. We had a really, really good track and field team. And I was the anchor leg of the 400 by 400 meter relay. And up until that point, we had a pretty good team, and we placed enough to get close, but we never really made states before. And this was my senior year. And this was finally a time where, I had to put everything out on the line. And for me, I had a personal goal of breaking 50 seconds for the 400, right? And actually breaking that time. So for me, what was crazy is the thing that really blew my mind with this was I was standing and I was up against people that were way taller than me, bigger than me, and who honestly I didn't really think I had a chance with. They were the best runners in the state prior, right? So they had plenty of reason, right, to just go out and crush it. And for me, I was thinking, okay, well, we're going to see what happens. And I'm going to try my best. So we go up to the line, we get down on the ground, put my hands out, and I'm just waiting for the horn to go off, right? I'm waiting for the bang to go off. And while I'm sitting in that moment, everything, my mind is kind of racing, but you just decide, you know what, you're here, you're in this moment. You're just going to accept it and you're going to try your best. So for me, that gun went off and I started running. Right? I was locked in, and there's something about once you're in it, it all goes away. All the fear, all the doubt, all the anxiety, it just goes away. And all you can focus on is being present in that moment to do your best. And when I was running, I had a pretty good start, right? I was third in the pack. And as we were finishing, right, and getting closer to the final laps, obviously some of the guys that were fast started to come up and started to pass me. However, I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm gonna pass this guy. And I just kept up. I kept up the whole time with this one dude who I was like, I cannot let this guy get away from me. And on that last leg, and the thing about the 400 that I love is that when you're running that last leg, you start to lose feeling in your leg, and you really experience that runner's high, because you just, at that point, you're literally on empty, and you're just like, how much can I get out of this? So I'm running against this guy, and I'm right behind him, and I'm running, and I'm just staying close to him, but I can't get past him. And I finished the race, right? I didn't win, and I was kind of upset. But then what happened after that was my coach came over to me after the race and he said, Denzel, you ran a 49.9. And I was like, no freaking way. And he's like, yes way. And I was like, let's go. And so that was a defining moment for me, because that in my running career at school, I realized I could run at a Division I school with breaking 50. I could run at a Division I track school for breaking that time. And so the reason I say that lesson and the reason I share that is because you never truly know what you're capable of until you go up against people that are better than you and pull out the best in you. Right. So once again, don't try to surround yourself with people that you might be better than just because it might make you feel good or you might feel like you're better. Always try to put yourself in rooms and with people that are at a higher level than you so that you have the ability to truly pull out your potential. Right. That's why accountability is so important. That's why, Chris, I love everything that you do. And the accountability community and everybody, it's like, we got to hold each other accountable. And when we're with each other and we're pushing each other to be our best, that is when it comes out, right? That is when all that comes out. So that's my stories. It's always with sports for me.
I couldn't agree more in the sports analogies. Let me take it back for a second, because you touched on something that is interesting when it comes to the idea of leveling up, and whether it's the fastest runner in the room, the smartest person in the room, the person that has the biggest social media following, the wealthiest person. You could obviously choose whatever it is, but there's also that comfort level of knowing that you're close to or maybe at the top. And some people are content and okay with that. And I want to be very clear as I preface it, that there's nothing wrong if that's what somebody wants to do and where they want to stay. But for one of our listeners that's listening to the show now, if they're at a place in their life, either personally or professionally, and they're really stuck and they're not sure, what would you say to them to help maybe encourage them to get out of that comfort zone and maybe get into that quote unquote different room?
I would say, look at the things that you're avoiding intentionally, right? Look at the things that for you are uncomfortable, right? Look at the habits that you do every day that are just autopilot. Start to just become more aware. And the easiest way to do that, at least for everything that I've done, is journaling in the morning. So specifically taking time in the morning when you wake up to just get your thoughts out that you have. And then at the end of your day, doing the same exact thing and actually reflecting on the day that you just had. What's going to start happening when you do that is you're going to start opening up a door to really be able to see why you're doing the things you're doing and truly reflect. We often get caught up in just the day to day and just sprinting through our day and not even thinking for a second of why we did what we did or what we were even doing. But when you have and you take that time, even 5 minutes once a day to just reflect and review your day, now you're starting to put the pieces together, and now you're actually starting to learn more about yourself and why you make the decisions you make. And that will start to lead you down the path of understanding that.
Journaling to me is such a interesting topic. And I choose the word interesting because I work with both men and women in the coaching space, both collegiately as well as individual clients and companies that I get the privilege to work with. And I know you do as well. And there's a lot of men that have this fear or phobia or comparison when they hear the concept or the idea of journaling. They automatically go back to Dear Diary and thoughts and feelings. and yes, there's some of that. And I want to be open to anybody that there's no right or wrong way to journal. But I know that myself and many of my friends, especially on the male side, put off journaling for so long. And the idea was, I'm not a journal guy. I'm not a feelings guy. I'm not into writing. And I was just working with a client this week, and we were talking about that exact concept of reflection. And his first rebuttal was, I'm not a writing guy. I don't write things down. And he was talking about some of the struggles he had, and he was going through days and experiences in his mind while he was doing his evening walk. And I said to him, have you ever thought about journaling? And he hit me right back with that rebuttal. It was almost like my sales days in the past, where they give you that binder of all the objections and rebuttals, and if he says this, you say that. But have you always been into journaling, or is it something that you're more open to? And do you feel that it's a skill that you can learn?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I was not always into journaling. I actually thought the same way. When I was in, high school and I was growing up. I mean, I was playing a lot of video games at the time, and the last thing I'd ever do was open a book or write in a journal. Right, that's the last thing on my mind. All I cared about was sports. But as I got into college and as I was basically graduating college, I started to just understand that, as I go into the real world, right, as we start to grow and start to develop and start to learn things about life, you realize that the only way for you to really grow and also get ahead is you have to understand what's going on with you mentally, right? Physically, emotionally. You need to understand what's going on. And the only way to do that is either with the people around you that hopefully support you, like your family, or you journal too. And for me, I didn't feel comfortable as a young guy who was always trying to be in the masculine and always try to be like, no, I'm a tough guy. Like I don't need to talk, about my feelings, or, I didn't feel comfortable doing that. The one place that I could go and could always go is just into a journal, right? And you could always just write down those things in the journal. And that really is what led me to understand that this is not something that makes me weak as a man, but actually can be a superpower for all men in understanding that the more we're in touch with our emotions and our feelings, the more we're able to actually impact the world positively and actually bring each other up, because we are so understanding of where we are and who we are that we're able to help other people. Right.
I think take it one step further is yes, I agree 100%, thoughts and feelings, ideas. But then when I was going through my divorce, it was very difficult in many ways. And I started talking to a couple of my individual clients that were going through, I don't want to say identical, but similar situations with their significant others. And I came up with the verbiage, and I didn't create this, but the verbiage I was using and recommending was the throwaway method. And a couple of my clients were really struggling with not wanting to say what they wanted to say to their significant other, but wanted to get it out. And I suggested this to two different clients. And I remember one day I was really going through a tough time with my divorce. And I just said to myself, hey, knucklehead, you talk about this throwaway method. Why don't you try it? And I literally took out a white piece of computer printer paper with nothing on it. And I just wrote a bunch of things down. And did I feel from a level 10 like I wanted to, punch the wall to a perfect 0? Absolutely not. But if I was at a 10 or a 9 that day, I 100% went down to a 6, 5, 4, 3, and I felt better. And that's one of the things that I talk to clients about, because journaling is not something that you have to write, 2 pages and 4 paragraphs every day, or else you fail at it. I use my journal in so many different ways: ideas, thoughts, fears, anxiety, frustration, wins, losses, breakthroughs. Going back to your 400 by 400, I had a lot of goals when I was an athlete myself, and I would put them down. So I'm so glad you touched on that. And I hope that somebody's listening to this now that maybe hasn't tried journaling, or maybe only tried it in their worst moment and said, this isn't for me. And I hope that somebody's going to give it that extra effort. And maybe that throwaway method is something that somebody will really resonate to, because of the idea that they're struggling with something. And again, I always look at, we're in this world and it's often all or nothing, 0 100. And yes, in many ways we are, but I take it 10 steps further and say, but what if you're at an 8 or a 9 and you can get down to a 7, 6, or a 5? And then the flip side is, what if you're at a 2 or a 3 struggling that day and you can get up to a 4, 5, or 6? It's not going from a 1 to a 10 and everything's great, or going from a 10 to a 0. Want to ask your perspective on a question that we don't always ask, but how do you personally define success, or what does success mean to you today?
So success is something that I define as it's everybody's own personal challenges and struggles, right? Success is overcoming your inner demons and your inner struggles that you have. Because once you're able to do that, now you're living at a higher level of self, right? You're actually able to really impact the world in a good way. So for me, it's always been the path of personal development, right? So being successful is not just, okay, did I get this result? Right? We're very results driven. We're very results based as a society, right? And that's what success is. That's determined as success. And yes, there's a lot of power that could be displayed with results. However, at the end of the day, we're here for more than just those trophies, right? We're here more than just getting that tournament win or whatever it is. We're here to actually help each other grow as humans, right? And in humanity. So my personal success, or a definition for success, I would say, is specifically helping and understanding that you are growing as a human, right? Emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, in all areas, right? And that, I think, is the ultimate determiner of success, is if you can not just, help yourself when you're at that point, but then you can help others by just living by example. And the last thing I'll add to that is moral authority, like moral leadership. Understanding that you are someone who's a leader that leads by example and that people naturally follow you, right? Not because of a position that you might be in, but you're actually living the example of true morality, of true high level spirituality and connecting people. And I think that is, for me personally, that is my success. If I can live to the highest potential that I was meant to live to, that's success for me.
That question is one of those selfish questions, but I know it adds value to the listeners as well, because I've received a ton of feedback over the last couple of years. But it's a question that's not black or white, yes or no, and your definition could be a million times different than mine, and the next guest could be identical to yours. But the value and the beauty of the question is if you take time and you reflect on what it means to you. And I would suggest any of our listeners that if you have not really taken the time to think about what success means to you, take what Denzel just shared and take a couple minutes just to think about what success means to you, because it goes back to my all-time favorite. If I had the Mount Rushmore of personal development legends, Zig Ziglar would be on the very top, and then there'd be a bunch under him. But he always used to talk about a quote, and he had different examples of it, but you can't hit a target you don't see, and you can't see a target you don't have. And there was different variations of that quote, but it goes, I think, really hand in hand with the question of how do you define success, because it's not a black or white yes or no, and it's 100% not one size fits all.
And I also just going to add to that, just to make it simple for the audience as well too, is just the general concept of 1% better every day in some area, right? That's really what it comes down to. It's just being 1% better every day, right? Maybe you get hit in the face one day, you get knocked down, but if you grew in one area of your life, you're winning.
I love that. I literally just said that exact concept with one of my college basketball teams that I'm working with today. We were talking about before practice, and the coach kind of teed it up for me. And I just went around the circle before practice, and I said to the team, how many people think that we're going to win a conference championship in today's practice? And people kind of looked around and they didn't really know how to answer. They weren't sure if it was a trick question. And I said, we're not. I said, there's not going to be a conference championship that's going to be crowned today. I said, the conference director is not going to come in here. I said, the other coaches for all the other teams are not going to walk in and give us a trophy. I said, but we do have the opportunity, if we embrace it, to get 1% better today. And if we do that tomorrow, and if we do that 4 or 5 out of 6 practices each week, again, not perfection, but consistency, we're going to have a significant increase week over week, month over month, if we truly embrace that 1% concept. And it's a lot easier said than done, but I used to look at numbers and things like that where, especially when I was tracking my numbers for shooting and basketball drills, I'd be like, okay, let me get, 15 or 20% better. And, if you're shooting, 5 3-pointers out of 100, yes, you could make 20 more, but it's not easy and it's not usually doable to get 20, 30, 40% better every day, but it is possible to do 1% today, and 1% tomorrow. Speaking of one, wanted to ask you, if you had to define yourself, but you could only choose one word, what word would you pick?
Consistent.
I love it. Consistent. You touched on your journaling. So I need to ask you if you could touch on your morning routine with our audience and share what you do. And again, prefacing that is not a copy and paste, do it exactly what Denzel says, but take somebody's advice, ideas, suggestions, and maybe if you're looking to tweak yours, you can see what Denzel does on a daily basis.
Absolutely. So, first thing I do is I wake up and I practice gratitude, right? So, whether I'm listening to an audio of gratitude, whether I'm listening to a meditation that talks about gratitude and enforces gratitude, that's how I start my day, is being thankful to be here, being thankful to be alive. Once I finish that meditation, I go into journaling, right? As we talked about. So, after that, I pull up the journal, and depending on the day and how I'm feeling, I will, like you said, it's kind of a creative time for me. So I will adjust depending, but I usually will write a couple affirmations at the top to start. I am excited. I am grateful, right? I am excited to get this goal and complete this task or whatever it might be. And then after I finish that first part of gratitude, then I go into what I'm excited about for the day. So things I'm just looking forward to, really excited to do really, really well. After that, I'll then write about what I need to let go of. So specifically, what things right now in my life do I need to let go of that I do not have control over? And the reason why I bring this up is because we get very, very, very obsessive about things that we can't control. And that actually takes away from our energy that we can actually utilize for the things that we can control, right? So I immediately always write that down after that. Then I usually finish off with a bigger question of, what do you want people to think of you when you pass away? What do you want to have left behind when you leave? Right. And I ask myself that question because it's good to understand why you're doing what you're doing, and also to keep you motivated and keep you focused on your purpose and your calling, right? Of whatever that is for you. So those 4 to 5 questions I ask myself each day are very, very helpful in just getting my mindset right for the day, getting excited for the day, and knowing that I'm still aligned with my purpose and calling. So that's the journal. After that, an essential piece is exercise. As you guys know from what I shared before, I was a former athlete and I still consider myself an athlete, right? We are all athletes in our own right. And for me, exercise has always been a foundational centerpiece for me, because if I can exercise and I get that workout done, I push myself. That's the first true win of the day that's down for me. Is like, okay, I pushed myself, I got through this workout, and now I'm awake. Now I'm ready to go crush the day, right? I feel good, my energy's high, release some endorphins. I feel great. I feel phenomenal. So after that, I go have breakfast of champions, and then we start the day, right? And I purposefully, just to add, the last thing is I do this in the early morning. I personally believe, and Chris, I'd love to hear your view on this as well, but I personally believe that when you wake up early in the morning, right, before most other people are awake, I feel like it gives me that time to really focus on those morning routines and those tasks. I don't get distracted. I feel like there's less of a chance for me to have to answer to I don't have to answer to someone or whatever at those times in the morning. And I'm specifically referring to anywhere between 4 to 5 to 6 a.m. that I'm doing these things. So we'll love to hear that.
Yeah, I think our listeners and anybody that follows me on social media know that I too am a morning person. And over time, I've gotten earlier, and I want to preface this too, because so many people will say something as, oh, I could never get up as early as you do. And I know you do as well, and they see your posts, and usually you'll timestamp your things. Mm-hmm. And I know you do it from a self-accountability perspective, which is why I post something workout related in the morning for myself, not from a bragging perspective, but it's from the idea that I'm checking that box. And I know some people don't like that check the box concept, but I'm checking something off my to-do list that's very important for me. And the reason I've moved my time up earlier and earlier over time, and people are like, oh, like you don't need as much sleep. I love sleep just as much as the next person, but I want to eliminate those distractions. And you talked about control of controllables. I use the term CTC all the time with my clients. I can control my 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock hour, and almost my 6 o'clock hour all the time. You can't always control it. But for example, this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, my daughter and I took my daughter to the gym. Yesterday or last night, she had lacrosse practice and a game, and I was taking her home. And throughout the week, she had asked about going this morning. And for me, there wasn't a question. It was, I wasn't on the road traveling or something. So for me, there was no doubt in my mind. But if I didn't have that morning routine, it would have been difficult for me to say, okay, usually I get up at 7:15. Now I got to get up at 5:40, and it just throws everything off. So I'm glad you touched on that, because it's not about what time you get up per se. It's about what you do at that time. And I want to be very clear with our listeners. It's not about doing what Denzel does or somebody else you follow or a coach or a mentor you have and copying it verbatim, like exactly how they do it. But if you only have 45 minutes and somebody else has 55 minutes for their workout or morning routine, it's not about the time. It's about what you do during that time. And I remember when I was training for high school and college basketball, I saw something about Jordan, and he talked about what he does during his workouts. And it wasn't about the time. It was about the efficiency and the effectiveness of what he did during that time. And it really hit me, because for a while prior to that, I was tracking the minutes and things like that. And it really made me reassess, reflect on, can I be a little bit more efficient and effective in my workouts? It didn't mean that I was going to try to cram a 3-hour workout into 25 minutes, but it was, if I could do the exact same thing in 45 minutes as opposed to 55 or 60 minutes, then I can make a little adjustment along the way. So I'm really glad you touched on that. I know you are a reader yourself, so I have to ask if there's anything that you're currently reading or that you've read recently that you'd like to possibly introduce to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right now there's a couple of different books I'm kind of between, but one that's really having a profound impact on me is Leadership by John Maxwell. Just to keep it simple, I mean, that book immediately starts throwing value at your face, right? Of just how to be a leader. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I believe everyone listening to this podcast is a leader. You're all able to lead in some way. And this book really covers that at a very deep level and gives you all different types of charts and things that kind of help you understand what the difference is between the leaders that we might think are normal, good leaders, but also, what a really powerful leader is as well. And it's just an incredible book. Some other books that just really had an intense impact on me when I read them. One is, I'm sure you know this, Chris, but Relentless by Tim Grover. That book really hit me in the face in terms of just being focused, being on top of things. You probably got it in that bookcase over there.
It's right there.
Yeah. There you go. That was a really good one. And just Tim Grover talks about cleaners and just the different levels of people that are competitive and want to win and have that drive. And obviously your guy, Michael Jordan, right? He was a cleaner. The definition of a cleaner. Like he made it happen. He did what he needed to do, and people followed him because of that, right? His teammates hated him, but they loved him and respected him because he knew that the only reason he was so intense with them is because he wanted to win the championship and he wanted to make sure they got everything done. So that was another book. And just to kind of change things up and to kind of look at more like spirituality type stuff is Joe Dispenza. He's a guy I've been reading for the past couple of months too, and over this year. And a book that I read that was phenomenal was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. That book is incredibly powerful because he goes into all the psychology and brain science of why we stick to certain bad habits, and then also how we can get out of those, right? And he gives you meditations in the book. It's an incredible book. So all the readers listening to this, if there's one book out of the three I recommended, just to kind of switch things up, definitely try out the Breaking Your Habits of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. It'll definitely give you a different view on things.
Have you read Today Matters by John Maxwell?
I have not.
I would add not only to Denzel, but to our listeners, I've been very fortunate to be on many podcasts myself, and I, not all the time, but I often get asked if I have a favorite book or two, and one of my favorite books is Today Matters by John C. Maxwell, which is why I got my first speaking, coaching, and training certification through John's course, because that book, Today Matters, just absolutely inspired me. And have you read Winning by Tim Grover?
Yes, I have.
So for our listeners out there, Tim Grover has written a Jump Attack book, which is more geared towards some of the work he does with athletes. But Tim's two books are Relentless and Winning, and the I is actually the number one. I loved Relentless. I've read it multiple times, but Winning to me was just that step further. And selfishly, why I love this question also, because when John was on stage for those 4 days of that certification program, somebody asked him a question and it led him into a really interesting story that he was sharing. And he talks about when he meets somebody for the first time, whether it's lunch or coffee or breakfast, two of the questions he always asks are, number one, who do you know that I need to know, which is a great question for introductions and like-mindedness. And then the second question is if he asked them if they're reading anything or if they've currently read anything that they'd like to recommend. And I forget the statistic he used, but so many people will talk about a new book within the last few months because it's popular on the New York Times bestseller. But in that question, John said that he always gets a book or two during a week of asking that question to a couple different people that's many years old and he's never heard of. And it's that hidden gem. Reason I said that is Joe Dispenza's book that you referenced. I don't know the year offhand, but it's an older book, not 20, 30 years old, but it's an older book. But it's a fascinating book. So I really appreciate you touching on that. Speaking about some of the greats and things like that, if I could grant you dinner tonight with any 5 people, dead or alive, that you could level up with, who would you pick?
I would definitely have to have Joe Dispenza at that table, for sure.
Joe D.
I think last time I told you too, Denzel Washington, because I love him as an actor. He's the man. If I could pick like as a one dinner time, the Metallica, the band, like just the band of Metallica, 5, like all of them. And last 2 would have to be Tony Robbins and Andy. I'll go with Andy Frisella.
Okay.
With Andy Frisella, yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see Andy and Metallica going back and forth, and that's another one of those selfish questions where, first of all, it's a cool way for our listeners to get to know a little bit more about our listeners, because I think that those questions are zero right or wrong. It's not about, okay, you can't have this person, that person. It's obviously a fictitious question because dead or alive, and you can pick anybody, and you picked 4 plus a band of 5. So no right or wrong answer in that. We're switching over to our hot seat questions, and the only thing we ask of you, we ask of everybody else, is you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Nice.
Last meal, you can pick absolutely anything. What do you pick?
Eggs, bacon, on everything bagel.
You can't go wrong with eggs and bacon. Favorite smell?
Lavender.
was not expecting that.
Lavender's nice, yeah.
Favorite sport?
Soccer.
Do you have an all-time favorite team?
No, growing up, I played for like Everton Youth Academy, so I liked Everton a lot, but I don't have a favorite team.
Favorite movie?
Dude, that's a brutal question. I don't even know if there really is.
I take offense to that. It's not a brutal question. It's a fun question.
No, it's a great question. But let's see, top movie that comes to mind right away.
All right, I'll make it easier for you. Your favorite comedy and your favorite action movie.
Comedy, Adam Sandler. Mr. Deeds is pretty funny. I can think of one. And then The Equalizer. Equalizer 1. That was good. Yeah.
I have a Denzel story about that, but I told you we will not share that online. Do you have a favorite book?
Favorite book? No, I don't have a favorite book. I think that with all the books that I read, there's something exponentially powerful, and there's always one or two huge takeaways from each book that's unique to that area of my life, that's unique to something that's going on in my life. So I don't think I really have necessarily a favorite book, but I will say that one of the first books that I read when I started to get kind of on this journey, it is actually a newer book, but was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. That was like one of the, oddly enough, the first like stories of someone like kind of growing through their pain and like that I read. And it was David Goggins. And I'm thinking like, wow, this guy went through some stuff. And so it just inspired me. Yeah, it inspired me.
It's one of my favorite books. Have you read Never Finished?
No, that's his newer book. No, I haven't read it yet.
Got to read that.
I'll definitely get on that though.
I think I know the answer to this question, but what is the favorite app you use on your phone?
Oh, Habit Share. Come on now.
Yes. Do you have
Come on now.
Do you have a favorite quote?
No, I really don't.
And what's that song, no matter whenever you hear it, in the morning, afternoon, or late at night, that you automatically just tune it up and rock out to it?
I'd say Back in Black by AC/DC.
Okay.
Shoot to Thrill by AC/DC. Yeah, no, those are like some of the first songs I ever heard on like when I got an iPod. So like if I hear those songs, like they're always good. Just brings back good memories, good times.
You just dated yourself. A bunch of our listeners are like, that's the first song I heard on an 8-track or a cassette. You're like, the first song I heard on Spotify 2 weeks ago.
No, on the iPod, what the iPod Shuffle or Nano, whatever the heck it was when it first came out.
You're showing our audience your age in a good way. Wanted to get your share in this because I know you are active on social media, but are there one or two people out there that you follow that put out positive and uplifting stuff that maybe you'd like to introduce or potentially reintroduce to our listeners?
I think Ed Milet's great. Ed Milet, I listen to his podcast a lot. Michael Singer as well. He's really great dude. He's more of a yoga background, but really talks about how like spiritually we as humans like need to learn how to really live with our troubles, our anxieties, like how to actually process and get through those things in life. And then in terms of just following, I mean, yeah, I would say mostly those guys. I mean, Tony Robbins comes up on my feed as well. And then this guy also, his name's Chris Worth. He's got No Quit Living. It's pretty cool too. I want to check that one out.
I'd actually recommend him before those other three, but
Yeah.
even being mentioned with those three legends is awesome. And wanted to give you an opportunity, Denzel, to tell our listeners a little bit about Inner Quest, what you do there, but most importantly, how they can follow you, whether that's on social media as well as online. And if anybody is interested in finding out a little bit more about some of the coaching and things you do, wanted to tee up a question for you in that realm.
Of course, yeah. So Inner Quest is mainly focused on habits and lifestyle coaching. So what I do is I work with people and individuals on targeting what things that they want to change in their life, what habits they need to instill, and what habits that they're currently enacting that they need to break, right? And going through all the different aspects of doing that. One great guy just in a book that you guys can all check out to get value on habits and how to change them too is James Clear's Atomic Habits, right? That's a great book that anyone that is trying to start and get better habits, definitely give that book a listen. That will put you on the right path. And yeah, that's really what I help my clients do. And what kind of happens just through that process is they just grow as a human and spiritually too. Like they just become way more awake and they become way more alive and they just feel more fulfilled in life. And that's what I think is so crazy is like, you think about habits like, okay, like, did you brush your teeth today? No. Okay. Well, you got to brush your teeth like every day, twice a day, whatever. But like, we don't think of the true profound impact that our habits have because habits aren't just brushing your teeth. It's like, no, it's making sure, like you say, good morning to people when you see them every day, right? And making sure that they're doing okay. Checking in with people a certain amount of time each week, right? And making sure you're doing that because we constantly think that, and just from like whether it's movies we watch and other things we see that we're just going to know all the right things to do, when to do them. And like life's just going to like naturally kind of be high in all areas naturally. It's like, no, like we have to actually pay a focus on that. We have to pay attention to those things. And so the habits in each area of your life, depending on how you're doing them, and if you're consistent, like that brings all those areas up together. So it's truly about, starting with the habits and really starting to change also who you are as a person and understanding your true power. I try to just empower people. That's my goal.
And what's the best way for people to follow you and find you on social media?
Yeah, so best way to follow me is going to be on Instagram. You can follow me at dzfit_performance. I'm constantly posting content every single day. And besides that, also in the bio as well of my Instagram, you can find all my other socials as well.
And last question we have for you is if you have some parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Start today. Don't start tomorrow. Start today. Do something small that puts you and moves you in that direction. Make sure you get it done.
I love it. For our listeners out there, I would highly recommend you connecting with Denzel. He puts out consistent stuff on social media. He definitely stays in his lane, and I don't want to say that in a small way, but he crushes it when it comes to habits and lifestyle coaching. And I know that you and I will connect again soon. And for anybody listening to this that would like to see Denzel live in person, you can see him speak at the Accountability Community's second live event, which will be on Tuesday, October 22nd at the Norwalk Inn, starting at 5 p.m. The title of the event is Finish Strong, and we are focusing that event on giving our attendees the skills and tools and structure so they can finish 2024 strong, so they can head into 2025 on fire with a plan of attack, as opposed to starting that year and beginning to do the planning then. So last question I have for you is give your 30 seconds as to why somebody should purchase a ticket and come see us on October 22nd.
Yes, you're going to want to purchase a ticket because with what we're going to give you guys, we're going to give you guys accountability. We're going to be coaching on mindset. We're going to be coaching on time maximization, leadership, and on all the really important things that are essentially going to make sure and guarantee that you're finishing this year strong and going into next year on fire. So make sure you get a ticket. Make sure you come because you are going to be networking, right? You're going to have options to also get headshots as well. And there's going to be food, right? And so there will be a lot of different things there as well. But mainly you're going to come there and you're going to leave there a different person with actionable steps to start working towards your goals.
I love it. We hope to see you there. Denzel, I appreciate you being on here. And for our listeners, make sure you follow Denzel. And we hope to see you on October 22nd.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to episode number 508. From habits, mindset, and consistency, Denzel touched upon some very important topics. In his parting words, he said something that I need to echo myself. Start today, don't start tomorrow. As we conclude today's episode, I encourage you to get after it today. Don't worry about being perfect or great right this moment, but get going today. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.